Building ethical and responsible businesses with PAS 24000. This is the headline of our webinar. And with these words, I'd like to send a warm welcome to everyone who is joining our today's webinar on PAS 24000. We're really delighted to have so many participants joining us from different regions from all over the world, to be honest. And together with you today, we will explore how PAS 24000 supports responsible business practices and strengthens supply chain due diligence. And in advance, thank you very much for taking the time to be here with us. And I would say, just let's get started with an overview of what you can expect for the next approximately an hour. So after a first introduction of today's speaker, as well as TÜV SÜD as your trusted partner for testing, inspection, and certification services, we will dive into the surroundings of PAS 24000 and related regulations. And afterwards, you will gain a deeper understanding of the certification standard itself. This means we will explain the structure and the requirements and share with you a hands-on approach for your way to a certifiable implementation of the management system. And of course, we will also share benefits the benefits and a practical example to even better understand the PAS 24000's role in driving sustainable and ethical supply chains. And last but not least, there will be sufficient time for a Q&A session. So that means we are looking forward to your questions, of course. And said that, I'd like to introduce myself as one of the speakers today. My name is Juliane Sommer. At TÜV SÜD, I'm responsible for our global product line and services related to due diligence obligations in the domain of validation, verification, as well as certification. And today in the webinar, it's also my colleague Alberto Sartori who is with me. And Alberto, please feel free to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Juliane, and welcome everyone. And I'm Alberto Sartori, and I'm Global Product Line Manager for Social Area Services in TÜV SÜD Business Assurance.
All right. So after you know who is with you today in the webinar, I would like to highlight also some, housekeeping aspects for the next minutes. So automatically, we will keep you on mute to avoid any background noises and interruptions. And what I would like to highlight is, of course, the box in which you can enter your questions. So we really encourage you to share your thoughts and your questions throughout the entire session. And during the Q&A session, we will get back to your questions and your comments, and we will answer and discuss your input. And in addition, please let me highlight that we will record the session and you will get access to the recording afterwards. So far, so good. Let me share a few information with you regarding TÜV SÜD. So with our locations all over the world at TÜV SÜD, we proactively build solutions that help industry balance both risks and challenges to enable reliable access to global markets. And we do this with our long-standing expertise in safety, security, and sustainability, a comprehensive portfolio of technical solutions, and a dedicated global team of specialists. And when we are talking about technical solutions, how does it look like? So our solutions reach from testing and inspection, but also, of course, the certification of products, the certification of management systems. In addition, we also provide services that are about auditing or about validation and verification. And as we know in detail, of course, the pain points and challenges of our customers, the solutions are, let's say, customized for different industry segments. For example, for the automotive industry or the energy industry, as well as medical devices, rail, or building and constructions, just to name a few. So far, that's about the introduction. And I think now it's time to have a closer look to all information that are related to the PAS 24000 certification. So this slide really captures the challenges businesses are facing today. So expectations around fair labor and human rights are rising everywhere. It's no longer enough to say, yes, we care, but companies are really asked to prove, let's say, their commitment to social performance. And legal requirements and buyer demands for evidence of social compliance are increasing rapidly. So this is our observation. And at the same time, there's a growing pressure to protect, of course, brand reputation and most importantly, also worker dignity. And when we have then a look into, let's say, reality and day-to-day business, so we see many organizations still lack a structured systems to manage these obligations. So this is still quite challenging for the organizations. And to be added, there's of course also a high complexity of new supply chain due diligence regulations, and the fact that labor laws vary widely across the regions. So that means it's really tough to navigate through this kind of landscape. And to conclude here in this early stage, this is also where PAS 24000 comes in. It provides a clear, internationally recognized framework to help you meet these rising expectations, comply with regulations, and implement consistent practices across global operations. So more or less, in short, it turns complexity really into clarity and helps a lot. We can see this also, so what I mentioned regarding the regulations on the next slide, when we have a look on all these regulations that got into place during the last decade. So when we talk about PAS 24000, it's important to understand why it's mattered right now. And if you see here, so the supply chain due diligence is no longer just optional. It is embedded in most of the recent due diligence obligations worldwide. So what does it mean for your business? It means regulators expect companies to go beyond their own operations and take responsibility for what happens across their entire supply chain. And PAS 24000 provides a structured framework to help you meet those expectations. So instead of scrambling to comply with multiple regional requirements, PAS 24000 gives you one consistent approach that aligns with global best practices. It's really about reducing the complexity, ensuring you are compliant and can build a trust with your stakeholders. So in short, if your organization wants to stay really ahead of regulatory trends and demonstrate responsible business practices, PAS 24000 is a powerful tool to make this happen. But of course, it's now interesting to, let's say, have a look at PAS 24000 in a nutshell or at a glimpse. So what to be shared here? The standard, which is certifiable, was published in September 2022. And the standard can apply to all sectors and regardless of the size of the organizations. So that means PAS 24000 is really a tool, a solution that can be used by each kind of organization. And as you are probably familiar with the management systems, so then you are also familiar and know about the aligned ISO high-level structure. And PAS 24000 comes exactly with the same structure, which makes it very easy to implement, especially if there is already a management system in place. And it provides really, let's say, the minimum requirements of social performance for the organizations. So that means considering the requirements of the standard, you know that you are on the right track. And if it's implemented properly, so then of course you can think about to get third-party certification of this standard, your implementation and your maintenance. And this is also what TÜV SÜD can provide. We hold an accreditation under Accredia, and with this accreditation, we can certify your management system accordingly to the requirements of PAS 24000. Having you given now a little bit, let's say, of a first introduction to PAS 24000, I'm happy now to hand over to Alberto.
Thank you, Juliane. Let me then take this opportunity to have a focus and a deep dive on the PAS 24000 standard. The social requirements in PAS 24000 are defined to ensure a base level of minimum performance, covering labor relationships, human rights, health and safety, work and business ethics. In fact, the standard reproduces the benchmarking requirements from the Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative of the Consumer Goods Forum, which ensures alignment to current international conventions and best practices. You can see listed in this slide the main reference topics in the annex of the PAS 24000 standard. The full structure of the standard is listed here. The compliance requirements related to social performance, as mentioned in the previous slide, are actually part of the annex to the standard, while the previous part of the standard has been prepared using the harmonized structure according to the appendix document from the ISO supplement to the ISO directives, with identical clause numbers, clause titles, text, and common terms and core definitions. This ranges from clause 4, context of the organization, and then, as you can see, through the other clauses, leadership, planning, support, operation, performance evaluation, and improvement up to the 10th clause. This is intended to enhance alignment amongst management system standards and to facilitate implementation for organizations that need to meet the requirements of 2 or more standards. As mentioned already, this makes the PAS 24000 standard easily integrable with other certification standards like 9001, 14001, 45000, etc. We believe this represents a great advantage for organizations working with management system standards already and wishing to extend their approach also to social and ethical requirements. The standard adopts a process approach, the plan, do, check, act cycle, and risk-based thinking. The process approach enables the organization to plan its processes and their interactions so that roles are defined and responsibilities understood across the entire organization. The PDCA cycle enables an organization to ensure that its processes are adequately resourced and managed, and that opportunities for improvement are identified and acted upon. Risk-based thinking enables the organization to determine the factors that could cause its processes and the social management system to deviate from the planned results, so that the organization can put in place preventive controls, minimize negative effects, and make maximum use of opportunities as they arise. Having introduced already the PAS 24000 standard, we would now like to hear from you. We understand there are many different participants to this webinar from different regions and probably with a different level of knowledge and understanding of the standard. So we would like to understand at which stage is your organization in the evaluation or implementation of the PAS 24000 standard. Are you new to this standard, or have you already considered implementing such a social management system? So please take the time to answer this short poll. Are you considering implementation of the PAS 24000 standard in the next 6 months or 12 months or beyond 12 months? Are you not considering at this time? Are you still evaluating the potentiality of this standard, or are you not sure about your organization interest into this certification process? We'll give you a few more seconds to cast your vote, and then we'll comment live the results from the audience. So moving to the next slide, we will be able to see the votes submitted so far. We can see that majority of respondents are not considering implementation at this time or are not sure about the level of interest from their organization. But there is also a group of companies that is considering implementation in the next months. Only a small part in the shortest time frame, but I think that this somehow mirrors the current level of knowledge and understanding of the standard at international level. As mentioned, the standard was issued in 2022. It has quite a recent history still, considering the recent introduction and the limited distribution so far, only in some regions and in some industries. However, several similar standards are already in place across industries for promoting responsible business conduct. And we believe that over time, we will see a growing number of companies interested in this social management system. So thanks for casting your vote. And let's continue with the presentation of the standard. The implementation and maintenance of an effective social management system and its ability to achieve the intended outcomes depend on a number of factors. According to the PAS 24000, these factors include top management leadership and commitment, a culture in the organization that supports the intended outcomes of the management system, interactive communication, consultation with and participation of workers and their representatives, policies and objectives that are aligned with the overall strategic direction of the organization, and the integration of the social management system into the organization's business processes. These factors contribute to the successful implementation of the system. But what practical steps should companies take in order to achieve this outcome? The management system is designed for agile and easy implementation. It does not rely on complicated and technical jargon. It can be reviewed internally by staff so that the system can be integrated to existing management systems or implemented from zero with internal resources. If external support is needed, TÜV SÜD can also arrange a pre-audit to check fitness and readiness of the management system to kick off the certification process. Once the organization feels ready, then it can contact the local TÜV SÜD office for a work proposal. We will check feasibility and propose dates and solutions for a certification audit. If needed, we can evaluate the integration of the certification activities with other management system audits. If your company is certified with TÜV SÜD already for 9001 or 14001, we will be happy to evaluate the possibility of an integrated audit. The past 24,000 certification audits are then conducted in two stages. The first stage focuses on the documentation set established by the applicant company. It can be partly performed from remote, and it focuses on the readiness and suitability of the documentation supporting the management system. The second stage focuses on effective implementation of the management system. It is performed on site. It covers the operations of the certified company, and it ends with the audit report, which may or may not include non-compliances, deviations from the standard, which require corrective actions and resolution so that the certification process can be brought to an end. So if any non-compliances are found, the company, as usual, implements the necessary corrective actions, provides evidence of effective resolution so that the process can be completed with the certificate, which is issued for a validity period of 3 years. So this is very similar and equivalent to other certification processes, including the maintenance of its validity through annual surveillance audits. As said, the certification audits as well as the surveillance audits are conducted on site. This is a typical feature of all social audits. The activities conducted during such audits resemble largely the typical certification audits. So they start with an opening meeting with management, and they also conclude with a closing meeting where the results from the audit are illustrated to management. Because of the importance of evaluating the compliance of workplaces and the responsible treatment of workers, auditors will always perform a tour, a visit of facilities and workplaces, including production areas, but also other facilities that may be available to workers, including accommodation, canteen, and others. As any other certification audit, auditors will collect relevant documents and records for evaluating effective implementation. There is one particular activity which is key to social audits, and that's the engagement of staff and workers throughout the audit. This also takes the form of confidential interviews to workers. A sample of workers is selected during the audit in order to conduct confidential interviews and cross-check the information from workers with the evidence arising from the tour of the facility and the review of documentation. The triangulation of this evidence is a key component of the social audits. So worker engagement and confidential interviews to workers are a fundamental component of past 24,000 audits. For companies that have no previous experience with this type of audits, there are frequently some questions on the practicality of this activity, how these interviews are arranged, how we deal with the confidentiality of information. There is now a long history of auditing in application of these techniques. our auditors are trained and qualified to apply these audit techniques, respecting the best practices in this field. Normally, a private setting is arranged for these interviews with workers. Only a sample of workers can be interviewed during the audit process. And the purpose is not to stimulate grievances towards the company or collect grievances, but it is really to cross-check and confirm the same information that can be identified through the visual observation and the documentation review. For example, do workers confirm the training received? Do the interviews reveal that this training has been effective? Or on the contrary, perhaps records can demonstrate workers were trained, but interviews in fact reveal that the information didn't pass to the workers or didn't actually settle in the workers' habits and routine work. Of course, the interviews to workers will also focus on the performance requirements of the organization. So auditors ask questions around the working conditions, contractual arrangements in place, working hours, safety problems, and so on. The same topics as are addressed throughout the audit through documentation review and visual observation. And now comes our next poll. We would like to hear from you in case you're considering a PAS 24000 certification audit, or in case you're already working with the social management system, you have received or you are planning a social audit at your facilities, at your operations. Which of these normative requirements from the PAS 24000 represent your highest concern? Where do you think auditors could identify and spot compliance issues? Where do you see the main areas for improvement in your organization? Is it related to child and forced labor, so serious violations of minimum human rights? Is it excessive hours of work or irregularities in the remuneration of workers? Do you expect issues around the safety of workplaces, on discrimination or treatment of workers, or restrictions in the freedom of association? You don't expect any issue of this kind in your organization? Do you think you have all these compliance areas under full control with no risk of significant deviations? So we will be happy to hear from you. This won't be a full statistical analysis. It also depends on the size of the company, may depend on the level of risk connected to the specific facility among participants. But let's see what are your replies here. Interestingly, 16% of the participants expect that there may be issues connected to child and forced labor in their operations. I can see that also other topic areas have been selected with a similar frequency, such as health and safety, discrimination. Excessive hours of work is apparently the top-rated expected deviation, with lower responses on freedom of association and regular wages. Interestingly, also, some participants are confident on the compliance of their operations. And in that case, we congratulate on your company on the effectiveness of your processes to ensure compliance. At the same time, if this expectation is based on a self-evaluation, we still recommend involving a third party like TÜV SÜD to review your processes and your systems. And you may be surprised at how issues sometimes lie below the surface and are not visible to management and internal staff through an internal audit or an internal review of processes. So we still recommend the benefit of an external audit to cross-check and validate this expectation. It's also interesting to compare these findings with the statistics that we have pulled out of online sources and gathering together the main results from different social audit standards. This goes beyond the past 24,000 because of multiple audit and certification standards available in this area, and the limited data set available for now only from past 24,000 audits. However, considering the similarity and overlapping of standards, we created this small graphic showing that wages, so remuneration of workers, proper arrangement of working hours, and health and safety issues, especially fire safety, but not only, rank typically as the most frequent areas with detected findings and deviations in social audits. So if you have also consider these areas at higher risk in your organization, then you can see that this somehow aligns and fits with the overall performance and trend of social audits globally. There are, of course, significant variations at the geographical level and also considering the industry of companies. So this is just a global average, but it is also a trend that we observe through our own audits. And interestingly, even companies with certified, dedicated management systems on some topic areas, for example, 45,001 certified companies, sometimes appear to experience still safety deviations and findings when performing social audits. And this may be due, for example, to the different techniques applied during the social audits, as I referred to the worker interviews, which are a great tool to establish and measure the effectiveness of training communication procedures, and whether these are then effectively having an impact on the workers' level of awareness and the work habits. Do they really know what are the safety procedures to be applied? For example, the evacuation routes, or who are the trained first aiders in case of accidents and incidents? All these aspects are investigated during a past 24,000 audit. Emerging topics such as business ethics and working engagement are also included in past 24,000 audit. And as we will see, the standard is not only focused on these frequent issues or the worst forms of labor exploitation. It also encourages applicant companies to address these growing expectations and good practices in responsible business conduct. For sure, the standard is still relevant for demonstrating and ensuring the minimum compliance of organizations against fundamental international conventions like those from the International Labour Organization. So the main purpose, we could say, is still to ensure organizations and supply chains are free from severe issues like child labor or forced labor. As you can see from these statistics, these severe problems still affect companies, the private sector worldwide, with millions of people still in situations of forced labor or child labor. And the problem is aggravated in recent years by an increase in international migration, with a large part of this workforce made up of migrant workers considered as highly vulnerable. And in fact, some statistics estimate that migrant workers are 3 times more likely to be at risk of exploitation compared to local resident workers, with up to 80% of migrant workers recruited excuse me, at international level through intermediaries such as job agencies, labor brokers, and similar. And this level of intermediation between employers and the workers is at higher risk of irregularities or labor exploitation. One globally applicable issue is, for example, the charging of recruitment fees to such workers, with up to 90% of migrant workers affected in high-risk industries. So workers who are required to pay in order to get access to employment opportunities, which contravenes international conventions and most national legislations. And worryingly, what our audit experience also shows is that the level of understanding and familiarity from management on these topics, including these severe issues, is not always so mature. So we have selected a couple of quotes from recent social audits performed in seemingly low-risk environments. And quoted here is the feedback and the comment from our auditors who identified charging of placement fees, so the so-called recruitment fees in final destination factories without the knowledge of management, being unaware of the issues occurring in the recruiting chain of its workers, and also a limited awareness of the risks associated with such labor supply chain. At the same time, as I mentioned, the PAS 24000 aims to go beyond these minimum compliance requirements and encompass growing expectations on business ethics and worker engagement. For example, it provides for a grievance mechanism, a channel which is made accessible to workers to raise concerns in a confidential manner, and that avoids any risk of retaliation. And this is a good practice which is now becoming more common across business in the private sector. Different tools and solutions are available, can be made available to workers and other parties for this type of communications, and companies need to demonstrate this open channel for communication, engagement of workers, and effective monitoring of issues and resolution. Another topic which is strictly connected to the conduct of responsible business is business ethics, and such expectations are built into the PAS 24000 standard as well. The intent is to promote integrity in operations and conduct of business, so companies who apply for the PAS 24000 certification must demonstrate that they refuse any involvement in corruption, bribery, and similar form of unethical practices. And equally, companies should refrain from falsification or misrepresentation of information, which may affect the audit process, but in general can heavily affect the overall level of compliance of the applicant company. And with that, I now return the stage to Juliane for a presentation of the benefits in implementation of the standard.
Yeah, perfect, Alberto, thank you very much. And I see also many questions coming in. If there are any additional questions you'd like to raise, considering the explanations from Alberto, please feel free to do so. We will get to the Q&A session in a few minutes. But prior, of course, I'd like to share with you some insights regarding the benefits PAS 24,000 provides to you. What you need to think about is, of course, as soon as you implement a new or an additional management system, it increases systematically the awareness. And this, of course, supports the prevention of compliance issues, which is quite important. And in addition, and when we think about the employees and the staff, it increases the motivation and the engagement of your workforce, as you can imagine that, yes, you prove that you are taking social performance seriously, and therefore the motivation increases. And this also positively affects the reputation. So when you think in general, the reputation of your organization to other stakeholders, but especially also to potential and new employees that also see that you support the topic of social compliance. This might be a little bit the internal perspective and how PAS 24,000 is benefiting to this perspective. There's, of course, also a bit the external perspective. So when you think about the need to meet client requirements and to increase the confidence with positive impact on the business, and of course to meet regulatory demands and prevent legal compliance issues. And last but not least, with implementing a social management system, it's really considering the emerging trend regarding due diligence and also the social compliance. And this improves, of course, the opportunity to manage this very properly. Having said though, I would like to share with you a real case example. So one of our customers reached out to us. It is in this case a customer from Italy, which is active in the logistics services, means in the area of transport, handling and storage. And this customer got a request of one of the largest clients to provide evidence of social compliance. And I can imagine that many of you had maybe in the past similar headaches that really a big client, an important client, asks you for a specific requirement. And to this situation, it is to be added the information that in place there was already an ISO 45000 management system certification. But, and this was a little bit the pain point of the SME, yes, there was the management system for occupational health and safety in place, but the final client requested something that is more related to social compliance. And therefore, there was a little bit of, let's say, negotiation. So it means the final client of this SME was proposing social compliance schemes and audits. But of course, this client had a little bit then the struggles to consider the additional effort that is may related to a social compliance audit or to other requirements that are not aligned with the high level structure of the ISO management systems. Therefore, we supported the SME in the conversation with its client to propose PAS 24,000 as really good proof to show the social performance and also a suitable equivalent solution to what the final client was proposing to the SME. So at the end, the parties concluded, yes, let's go for the PAS 24,000 certificate. Both the SME as well as the final client were happy with this solution as it met the requirements of the final client, but it was also manageable for the SME. So that means the added value was, it was more easy for the SME to implement the requirements of PAS 24000 into the existing management system landscape and to comply in this case then to the requirements of the 24000. And of course, there was the option to audit and to certify the PAS 24000 requirements together with the existing management systems. And this, of course, brought the benefit that the SME could save costs internally as well as for external costs when considering the certification, but it was more easy for the SME to implement the requirements. And of course, at the end, the SME got a certificate. With this certificate, it could demonstrate to the final client its compliance to the requirements, and the certificate, of course, could also be used for other parties that are interested in the social performance of this SME. With this example, you see that PAS 24000 is a really good solution to prove and to demonstrate your social performance to your internal as well as external stakeholders. And on the next slide, yes, I would like to share with you why partnering with TÜV SÜD for PAS 24000 certification makes a real difference. So when you choose TÜV SÜD for PAS 24000 certification, you're partnering with a team that brings decades of experience in delivering thorough and reliable certification services. So our proven track record ensures that you benefit from expertise you can trust, as we have not only experiences in PAS 24000 certification, but also other audit and certification schemes that are related to social compliance, such as SA 8000 or RCI or RBA. So there are a few in this area. Now, why? So what if your business operates in multiple regions? So we also offer from a global footprint perspective and can provide consistent and standardized solutions across multiple regions. So this means enhanced compliance and oversight for your organization. That's no matter where you are operating. In addition, please let me highlight TÜV SÜD is independently accredited. So we are, let's say, approved by Accredia, accreditation body, to issue PAS 24000 certificates, giving you the confidence in the credibility of our certification. And our approach is quite simple. So we work alongside as you for a partner, helping to address your business challenges and providing practical solutions tailored to your specific needs. And when we think about risk mitigation, this is, of course, another key advantage. So our experience in risk-based auditing ensures maximum effectiveness while reducing costs and effort. And finally, we help you save time and money. By supporting projects end-to-end, we minimize financial risks and streamline complex developments, making the entire process more efficient and more cost-effective for you. So this a little bit to share the valuable partnership with TÜV SÜD. And sharing here on the slide, of course, we would like to get in touch with you if there are any questions, any requests from your end regarding certification for PAS 24000, or maybe also other services within our portfolio. So please feel free to scan this QR code. While scanning this QR code, you can leave and share with us your contact data, and we can immediately contact you after the webinar to exchange and discuss with you your current situation and to find a proper solution depending on your existing needs. And when it comes to ethical and responsible business practices, of course, it's not just about the PAS 24000 management system certification. There are also other aspects that support your responsible business practices. This might be the training and the enablement of your employees, considering human rights aspects and social aspects for, let's say, your internal operations. But also, of course, let's say reporting standards or other relevant knowledge and skills that are relevant for your employees and your workforce. Yeah, next to the PAS 24000 certification management system, there are also, of course, other certification management systems that are relevant for the portfolio and considering your client requirements. So we will touch this also in the Q&A, as there were a few questions about the differences of a few schemes. So we will explain this also in detail in a few minutes. And of course, when we think about supply chain auditing, this is also a valuable pillar when it comes to responsible business practices to make transparent the performance of your supply chain. And last but not least, also when we consider the validation and verification, so whenever there is a claim or data and information you would like to get third-party confirmed, so then please feel also free to reach out to us. So far, that's what we are sharing today with you regarding the official part of the webinar. And now I'm happy that we open, let's say, the Q&A session. And I think there are already quite some interesting questions that were raised by the audience. Maybe first, a very simple question that was shared by the audience. There was the question of what does PAS, so P-A-S, means. And to share this, PAS means publicly available specification. So we have also then clarified this tiny technical detail. And I think now we can get to the more questions that are related also to other management systems. And Alberto, maybe you can help out here. So there was, for example, the question or the request if we can share a little bit about the differences of PAS 24000 as well as SA 8000 and the ISO 45001.
Sure, thank you. This topic seems quite popular. I can see several questions, which I'm very happy to answer because it shows our audience is quite knowledgeable on this subject matter. And yes, there are several similarities between the S8000 standard and the PAS 24000. Both are certification standards and relate to a very similar or equivalent scope, the responsible conduct of business, the social compliance of operations. So in this sense, the performance requirements are very similar. We are now waiting the finalization of a new version of the S8000 standard. There may be updates starting from next year, that there will be for sure. And TÜV SÜD is accredited for the S8000 certifications as well. At the same time, I believe that we clarified one of the main differences when presenting the PAS 24000 standard as based on the harmonized structure from the ISO. And this is actually the main difference with S8000, which is issued and maintained by a private organization called SAI. And although it has been in place for several years, there has not been a work for alignment to the ISO standards. So integration between S8000 and 14,001 or 45,001 is proving more complicated, more complex for organizations. They are not based on the same terms. The clauses are different. And therefore, integration can be performed, but is more complicated. Another aspect which I think is worth pointing out is that the S8000 standard as privately owned is subject to a set of interpretation and implementation guidance documents which are mandatory from the owner organization. This somehow restricts also the flexibility of the certification body in its implementation in specific audits. The publicly available specification, as Juliane mentioned, and as the name says, is a document which has been created but is different from a full standard in the sense that it allows for more flexibility. It has been approved and issued after a consultation period, a multi-stakeholder engagement process, but it allows certification bodies to develop their own regulations for implementation and interpretation, which is what TÜV SÜD is doing. This is what we have done by achieving accreditation under the accreditation body Accredia, so that now we are fully equipped to deliver this certification in different countries and different regions according to a standardized approach and procedure.
All right, thank you very much, Alberto, for explaining this. I see that there are multiple questions also about how can this be, let's say, operationally done to integrate the PAS 24,000 requirements to the existing management system standards? And to explain this maybe a little bit more into deep, as it was mentioned, PAS 24,000 follows the same high-level structure as other, let's say, compatible standards. And therefore, you can imagine that also the PAS 24,000 is considering aspects or requirements like the context of the organization and the leadership, as well as planning and support and operation and improvement, just to name a few aspects of the high-level structure. And if we, let's say, take out the example of the context of the organization, so as soon as you manage this aspect for your existing management systems, so means, for example, ISO 9001 or 14,001 or also 45,001, you can add, of course, your perspective, or you can broaden your perspective also to the social performance. And this is how you implement and align and streamline the implementation and the maintenance of all these management systems. And in addition, as it was explained, it is then also, of course, following the PDCA cycle, so means plan, do, check, and act. And therefore, it's really a good, let's say, puzzle piece that fits perfectly to the already existing management systems in your organization. So, and there is another question regarding the industries. So there was a question on which industries are applied for the PAS 24,000. Here we can really say there is no specific scope for PAS 24,000. So each organization can decide to implement the requirements. So that means it doesn't matter if you are an organization, maybe in the textile and footwear industry, or in the services industry or in the manufacturing and industrial goods industry. So all of those industries have their, let's say, requirements, of course, and you can feel free to implement then also the requirements and the management system related to PAS 24000. Yeah, and I bet there's also the question if PAS 24000 is mandatory, and if there are any, let's say, specific regulations PAS 24000 helps to comply with.
So PAS 24000 is not mandatory. It's a voluntary standard for certification of organizations. However, as we explained at the beginning, there is a growing demand for evidence of social and ethical performance, especially in international supply chains under the pressure of due diligence regulations, which are on the rise at global level. We expect that these type of tools and PAS 24000 in particular will play a key role in the future to demonstrate the compliance to these regulations. Even though due diligence regulations do not list specific tools or certification standards, there is a general understanding and alignment that companies should provide independent evidence, third-party evidence of their performance and compliance. And so this tool has certainly been developed also bearing in mind this type of business pressure and the regulatory demands and the typical requirements from international buyers and brands on their suppliers. As in the case study that we have presented, the Italian SME company, where the initial request came from one of the final clients, and PAS 24000, even though not known at the beginning, proved to be a suitable solution in order to demonstrate the proper credentials of this supplier to its client base.
Thank you, Alberto, for your explanations, and we are now 1 minute over time. So therefore, we like to thank you very much for your participation to this webinar and all the questions that were raised. And we're looking forward to get in touch with you in the next step. And for today, we wish you a nice day, nice afternoon, nice evening. So have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you.